Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo. Friday already, Friday, November 19th, and we are rolling right into Thanksgiving week here pretty soon. Gosh, and that's hard for me to believe. Someone asked me the other day in the fellowship, they said, "Bo, did you buy your turkey yet?" And I'm like, I haven't even thought. I haven't even, I must say, I haven't even thought in that direction. And I know that might be nuts. I don't know, but I don't know. Is so busy, and it just doesn't. It's just not on the radar at all. And so we'll see what we do this Thanksgiving. Who knows what we will do, but I do hope you guys have a just a wonderful time with friends and family for sure. So we're in Genesis 19 on the Morning Devo with Bo. Bo Willette's my name. You could always check out the archives at my YouTube channel at Bo Willette. And there you'll have a lot of videos to go over. But they're all in a playlist by books, so you can pick the book you want to go into and go through the Devo with me. Devo style is a little different than just going through and doing a Bible study. It's a little bit more applicable and kind of easy to flow through when it's Devo style. We're not getting into too much of the nitty gritty, and I'm trying to stay off of the pastor's soapbox, and just sticking within the text and letting it speak to us. So let's get into it. Genesis 19, another very popular, very famous passage of Scripture. Uh, Big time, kind of big moments, right? Abraham and Sarah are given a wonderful promise that they will have a progeny, and it will be a miracle. It'll be a miracle through their sexual organs. They obviously that's how it's going to happen. It's going to happen naturally, intimately, and so they've been. Abraham gets this sign of the covenant. Where is it at? Where's the sign of the covenant? Is it at his arm? Is it on his head? Is it on his, chest? Nope. It's actually on his, what. And it's on that what spot because that was always to be the amazing miracle that took place, that in an old age he has progeny. And this would be a special kid. It would be the kid of promise. And Abraham also and Sarah had another child, of course, before this promised child that would come, and his name's Ishmael, and that was through Hagar, the maid servant of Sarah. And we have a very dysfunctional family, by the way. We learned that just as you might have come from a dysfunctional madhouse of a family, so this one's not too different as yours. And we see that now another encounter with these heavenly beings, if you will, these servants of God, are in this chapter as well. We see that this has kind of been a little bit of a repetition that's been going on the last few chapters. Is this incredible relationship between Abraham and these messengers? So it says that evening the two angels came to the entrance of the city of Sodom. So they come to the main gate, the place of going into the city. These were really special places back then, places where a lot of commerce was done. And usually when you went into a city of old, it was kind of like, you had a main passage and kind of a checkpoint, if you will, to get in and out of the city. And it says Lot was sitting there as they arrived. You get the idea that Lot really had a place, maybe in the city, as far as a job goes. And maybe that was his station, was to be there at the city gate, the city entrance. And so when Lot sees them, he stands up to meet them. And it says he welcomes them, and he sees something special in these beings. So I'm sure many people walked through the city gate of Sodom this day, but for some reason, this was a special crew that was going up there. Whether it was the way they dressed, or I don't know, maybe it was the way their hair was. Maybe they had their hair up like this, like mine. Who knows? I always have this theory that we're going to get to heaven and everybody's going to have dreadlocks, and people that, we're going to be the ones that are shocked. We're going to be like, wow. They're going to look at us and go, be like, you guys wore your hair really weird, you know? So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It says, sirs, he said, come to my house as my guest for the night. You can get up as early as you like and be on your way again. So some wonderful Middle Eastern hospitality. No thanks, they said. We'll just stretch out here along the street. So their answer is no. They don't say, yeah, Lot, we'll go to your house. Sure, man, we'll spend the night there. You get the idea that they just want to stretch out and then they want to deal with what they got to deal with. And you get the idea that they don't really want to hang out too long. And it says, but when he was very urgent. Why was Lot so urgent? Have you ever been in a place of kind of where you're a little paranoid maybe? Something's not right in the fam. Something's not right. Maybe some of the decisions you made, and you get a little paranoid on the paranoid. You're kind of quick to everything. You're kind of nervous about everything. What if they know? What if they find out? Those kind of things. You're trying to cover bases. Those kind of things. You kind of feel that paranoia on you. You get the idea. I get the idea that Lot was a little, what's the word? Something going on. Paula says, don't we all have some dysfunction in our families? Oh, man. Yeah, I think so. I think we all have some form of it, some kind of it. None of us have perfect families. But some do have better families than others. That's for sure. And when we say the word better, that must be there's a best, right? And, you've been adopted into Jesus' kingdom, it says, into his family, into the kingdom from above, and that's the best family with the best father, right? So we see this paranoia. I like to see it in Lot, where he's very quick. Come, stay at my house. It's urgent. And they went home with him. And he set a great feast before them, complete and freshly baked unleavened bread. Interesting, unleavened bread. That's interesting too. When we think of unleavened bread, I kind of think of bread made in haste, right? No time to have the yeast rise. We're going to make some unleavened bread. It's going to be flat. And that's what he makes. He makes like a flat matzah bread, like a flat tortilla, if you will. No leaven at all. Doesn't rise. Quick. And he makes a great feast. So, man, he's getting stuff together. He really, after this meal, it says, and as they were preparing to retire for the night, the men of the city, yes, Sodomites, young and old, from all over the city. Wow. I want you to see this, young and old. The idea that, I have the potential to do amazing good things, and I have a potential to do a lot of bad things. And it says here that young and old from all over the city. It seems like there was not only older people that were here at the house, but there were also younger people, meaning there was a training going on, a discipleship going on. And just as I might have the potential to really help many people through my life, I also have the potential to also hurt a lot of people in my life. And that's so true. And I always got to remember that. God, help me to use, myself for the good, for a God-glorifying purpose, to help out the younger generation in the right way. And not hinder them and not hurt them. And that's always a convicting thing on my heart, what kind of example am I, to people, to the young? Because here you have young and old from Sodom coming at nighttime, and they come to the house. They're from all over the city, and they surround the house. Now they shout to Lot, bring out those men to us so we can rape them. So when they see these messengers, angels just means messengers. When these angels are there with Lot, we get this discipleship of Lot, or of Sodom, that's going on, this discipleship ministry, but not in a real positive way at all. It actually is one where we see a very sexual selfishness that's going on, right? Bring out those men to us so we can rape them. And sometimes we have to do an inventory, and I got to do an inventory on my intimacy. What is my intimacy like? Is it me? Is it about I? Is that what my intimacy is about? Is it about me getting my wants, my needs met? And these are intimate ideas, but the idea is we want to walk in love, agape love. And when we look at the list of agape love from 1 Corinthians chapter 13 in the New Testament, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we get this list. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, it does not seek its own. Seek its own. This says, bring out those men to us so we can rape them. 1 Corinthians 13 says, love does not seek its own. Do you see the difference there? Agape love does not seek its own, right? This says, bring out those men to us so we can rape them. It's about them. It's about them. They are seeking their own. And what happens in a culture that regulates sex and sexuality, intimacy, to seeking your own? What would that culture look like? That if everybody was seeking their own in their intimacy, if that's what was it. This is a narcissistic attitude, is it not? Bring out those men to us so we can rape them. Now, I'm not focusing so much on the idea of, people young and old surrounding the city and shouting to Lot, bring out those men. I'm not focusing on so much the men, but I'm focusing on the idea of us. We, it's all a selfish ambition. And so it doesn't matter if it really doesn't, in my mind, it doesn't, the first primary issue here in this text is not so much that it's men that they're going after. It's that there's a narcissistic tendency, right? We see that. Us, them. We take the most intimate, the most vulnerable of expressions we can do as human beings, our intimacy. And what we do is we now have a narcissistic view of it. This is about me. And again, what does a culture look like when you take love out of intimacy and all you have is us, I, we, that kind of thing? What does that culture look like? Think through it, right? And if you're interested in those topics, that's why we have the Running Light podcast. Check it out on our SoundCloud platforms, soundcloud.com, Running Light Ministries. You can always check that out. We call it the Better Pleasure Podcast, but you could always check that out. We talk a lot about those issues on those podcasts. And but anyway, for this morning, selfishness. Help me to not be so selfish. Help me not to be about the business of I, even in these appetites that we have as human beings that are, in a sense, normal appetites. Intimacy is a normal appetite that we have. And yet, help me not to be narcissistic. Let me to be concerned with the other. Does that make sense? Concerned with the other. Love does not seek its own. These people are seeking their own. Bring out the men so that we can rape them. Taking advantage, talk about an objectification on a radical narcissistic level. Pretty intense. It says Lot stepped outside to talk to them. He tries to find a reasoning common denominator here, probably. What can I talk to these guys about? He talks outside to talk. He goes outside to talk to them, shutting the door behind him. Have you ever tried to talk to people when things seem like they're so irrational? Things seem to make no sense, and you try to talk to someone rationally, and they just can't. They're not getting it. They're not on the page. Yeah, sometimes I think our depravity can get so low, so bad, where we're totally no longer capable of being rational. We've become full-blown unrational, and nothing we say or think anymore is making any sense. You know, the New Testament warns about our conscience being seared with a hot iron. You know, the ability to recognize the difference between right and wrong, our conscience. It's almost like something's on it, singeing it, frying it, so that we can't know the difference anymore. We become so depraved. And man, isn't that a trip how that works? Oh gosh. I think back on me, and I think, God, how many times I said things and I thought things. And even in my life today, there's things where I'll think about and I'll go, gosh, it's so irrational. And that's what sin does, is sin produces like a more irrational, it seems like, mentality. It's very interesting. And it says, Lot stepped outside to talk to them, shutting the door behind him, right? And he's trying to be rational. Hey, this ain't right. He begs, don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have 2 virgin daughters, and I'll surrender them to you to do as you wish, but leave these men alone, for they are under my protection. You guys are lusting right now, and lust knows no bounds. And so it doesn't matter if it's a man, it doesn't matter if it's a woman, it doesn't matter if it's a robot, it doesn't matter if it's a whatever. Man, it don't matter. When lust is ruling and reigning, it just simply doesn't matter. We will go for it. That's the power of lust. Woo, and it sure is. And nothing's rational at this point, is it? It seems all irrational. Lot wants to protect the messengers. He knows they're special. He knows something is going on. Lot's not oblivious to the chaos that's going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's been living in it. He's pitched his tent in that direction. He's working there. He sees it all. He sees the yuck, the evil of it, the wickedness of it. And he tries to be rational with it, but he doesn't. He just succumbs to the irrational behavior himself. He can't seem to get it right. He gets one thing right. Hey, what you're doing is wrong. It's wicked. Don't go after these visitors. But then what does he do? He says, you know what? Take my daughters. Take my virgin daughters, and you can have them. What age are they? I don't know, but they're intimate age. And he says you could take them. He finds it's kind of a Middle Eastern vibe, right? That the guest, you do not harm the guest. That is like a cultural no-no to the bone. And if you've ever wondered about these interesting Middle Eastern cultures, you could always talk in our church to a guy who's been to the Middle East named Peter Martin. And you could talk to him about some of these cultural intimacies and practices that they have that really seem very backwards to us. Like for us, it would be to protect the 2 daughters, not so much the guest. But over there, it would be the opposite. The cultural norm would be to protect these guests that you've made a feast for, and to you can actually, there's a cultural okay to allow your kids to, your maybe teenage kids, to participate in and something else. And so Peter's always a great source for that, just to get kind of a front view of what it was like when he was over there not too long ago. So that's always interesting. But here you see again the irrationality of sin in our lives, right? We do things that are irrational. Doesn't make sense at all. Why are you doing this? Why would you put your daughters in harm's way, Lot? Um, you know, and so he gives him this option. But remember, lust knows no bounds. There's never any bounds to lust. It hurts. It doesn't matter if you're married and you're in a monogamous marriage. When someone's lustful, even in a Christian monogamous marriage, it can hurt tremendously to know that you're just being objectified and used. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in this kind of context that we're reading that we see the horrible dangers of a lustful attitude. Lustful attitudes just in our own lives, just lust in our heart comes out, and it is an ugly thing. It's very, very hurtful. And so these men, it says, but these men, he says, leave these men alone. They are under my protection. So we see this kind of cultural vibe of protecting the guests. And then they say, stand back, they yelled. Who do you think you are? And they're going to charge the gates. It says, we let this fellow settle among us, and how he tries to tell us what to do. We'll deal with you far worse than those other men. Man, wow. Really, really sad when we have unbridled lust and there is no law. There is no police to police the situation, right? Not everybody's been through this, but it's funny. It's like, when it comes to things like defund the police or things like that, and I think of this situation, I think of, hey, where's the police, man? I mean, God, did they have a defund the police session or what? Like, and they didn't have police around or things like that. But when I think of like things like that, I don't think the people who are saying this have lived in a place where you need the police, where you have stuff like this going on. You have unbridled, selfish ambition that is taken over, and the strongest willed people win, right? If you have these people in the majority, they will dominate. And we grow up like this. I mean, you grow up in crews and groups, and people dominate those groups. The people with the strongest will or the strongest might will dominate the group. If no one's policing that group, and no one does when you're growing up, then it becomes dominated by the strongest folk, the majority, and that's how it rolls. And in this town, you don't have any police that are doing the job of policing. It's gone. It's void. It's not there. But I've been in situations as a kid where I wanted the police to come. And, I'm glad the police came. It was important for the police to come. But I guess if you're living in a house, if you're living up in the estates, if you're living up and that's your world where you live, and you're, I don't know what they call it anymore, but you're the aristocrats, and then maybe you don't need the police. I mean, maybe you look at your world and you go, oh, everything is fine in my neighborhood. But there are neighborhoods that, man, they ain't that fine. And maybe you need to sell your home and go live over there with them. And then you'll see the need for police. Maybe, but there's a need for police, man, right? Someone needs to come. Sirens need to go on. Someone needs to go, hey, everybody around this house, go home. If you don't go home, you go to jail, right? And there's no police there. Super sad, right? Yeah, if you don't have people that can enforce the law in a town, then it can be very easily an open door for lawlessness to happen. And that's what we see here, is lawlessness to happen. And if you've ever been in these situations, it is scary. This is not an easy situation, especially something when it comes to sexuality, right? And intimacy. Very vulnerable, very scary, all that stuff. But it can be so many different areas, not just those. Just someone breaking into your house and taking things is scary. Someone's, in a sense, invaded your world, taken something from you, so very sad, but something we can learn in our day and age, right? This happens, and we need to always remember that. And God, give me a heart to remember that us as human beings have the potential to do good, and we have a full potential to go gnarly, messy, like bad. That we have a selfishness in us that can hurt people in their most vulnerable situations and environments, contexts, vulnerable to context. So it says, we let this fellow settle among us, and now he tries to tell us what to do. We will deal with him far worse than these other people, these other men. And they lunged at Lot and began breaking down the door. But the two men reached out and pulled Lot in and bolted the door and temporarily blinded the men of Sodom so that they couldn't find the door. And what relatives do you have here in the city? The men ask. Absolute chaos scene. Nothing going good. This is not fun. And they ask him, let's get your relatives out. Get them out of this place. Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, or anyone else. Lot says, who do you know in this city? And that's the big thing. Who do you know? Let's get them out. Do you have any relatives? Hey, do you have any relatives in your family? Who do you want to know Christ? Who do you want to be freed from the madness of lawlessness? Who do you want to get away from this world of insanity, right? You get these kind of pictures. Who do you want to be saved? And he says, for we will destroy this city completely. And what's interesting is, just as the angels say, hey, we're going to destroy this city, guess what? Our lustful ambitions as human beings, we could look at today, and maybe we are destroying our own cities. Maybe we are destroying our own world. Even though we think we're doing right, we think we're doing good, maybe, just maybe, we're on the path to destruction. Yeah, maybe we're on the path to destruction. And he says, get people out, get people out. And so we will destroy this city completely. The stench of this place has reached to heaven, and God has sent us to destroy it. Wow. The stench. That's a gnarly term, huh? The smell, it stinks. Wow, that's kind of trippy. So Lot rushed out to tell his daughters, fiancés, quick, get out of the city, for the Lord is going to destroy it. But the young men looked at him as though he had lost his senses. For those who want to go to Jesus to be the refuge for us to be saved from this world, people that don't know Christ look at us kind of funny. They look at us like we've lost our senses, like we are out to lunch, and that's how it goes. Lot is trying to pull his daughter's fiancés out of there and say, hey, let's get out. And they go, what? Why? What are you talking about? See, sometimes our lust and narcissism can become so normal where we just get used to our lust and our narcissism. We can't even see it anymore. If someone challenges us on it, we just kind of go, we don't even know what to say. Yeah, that's how crazy our hearts can get. At dawn the next morning, the angels became urgent. Hurry, they said to Lot. They take your wife and your two daughters. So obviously Lot spends all night trying to get people out, but no one wants to go. And boy, isn't that the case? God, that reminds me so much of growing up. People give you an out, but you just want to stay in the muck, and that's kind of how it rolls. And it says, take your wife and your two daughters who are here and get out while you can, or you will be caught in the destruction of the city. And when Lot still hesitated, the angel seized his hand and the hands of his wife and the two daughters and rushed them to safety outside the city, for the Lord was merciful. Wow, isn't that cool? The Lord was merciful. The Lord, does Lot have narcissism in him? Yeah. Does Lot have selfishness in him? Yeah. But what was the Lord? Merciful. Wow. Isn't that cool? What you and I deserve, we don't get. That's what mercy is. What we deserve, we do not get. God has been merciful. That's something that is a grace of God. That mercy is a gift of God towards the recipients. God was merciful to Lot. We're going to find that Lot is not the greatest dude in the world. I'm not the greatest dude in the world. But God has had mercy. He has taken my hand. He has seized my hand and said, Bo, follow me, man. You're coming with me. And even though I might kick against that, he grabs my hand and he rushes me to safety. Isn't that a cool picture? Jesus takes your hand and says, let's go. And he gets you outside of the city, of the calamity. The Lord was merciful. Oh, let's thank the Lord for his mercy. Flee for your lives, the angels told him, and don't look back. Escape to the mountains. Don't stay here down in the plain or you will die. Oh, no, sirs, please, Lot begged. Since you have been so kind to me and saved my life, and you have granted me such mercy, let me flee to that little village over there instead of into the mountains, for I fear disaster in the mountains. See, the village is close by, and it is just a small one. Please, let me go there instead. Don't you see how small it is, and my life will be saved? All right, the angel said, I accept your proposition and won't destroy that little city. But hurry, for I can do nothing until you are there. From that time on, the village was named Zoar, meaning little silly. Or city. I said silly. The sun was rising as Lot reached the village, and the Lord rained down fire and flaming tar from heaven above Sodom and Gomorrah. That's crazy. And utterly destroyed them along with other cities and villages of the plain, eliminating all life, people, plants, and animals alike. But Lot's life looked back as she was following along behind him and became a pillar of salt. Looking back, God, help me not look back. Help me look forward. Help me move forward. And I love that picture, right? That kind of don't look back, but look forward. Looking back ain't gonna help us too much. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. Isaiah 43:18, right? Forget the former things. Don't dwell on the past. Oh man, the past. Oh, the past, right? No, let's look to the future. That morning, Abraham was up early and hurried out of that place where he stood before the Lord. He looked out across the plain of Sodom and Gomorrah and saw the columns of smoke and fumes, furnace rising in the cities there. So God heeded Abraham's plea and kept Lot safe, moving him from the maelstrom of death that engulfed the cities. And wow. And man, you think we've already gone through a tragedy. The chapter continues, and I'll let you guys finish it. But we see some really interesting situation that goes on. And we see that Lot's decisions, man, weren't the best. And there's consequences to his decisions. Some of the enemies of Israel in the future from this time came from the decision making that Lot and Lot's daughters had in the end of this chapter. And you got to read it, but there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of insecurity going on. The daughters are fearing for their future, and they come up with crazy, irrational decision making. And this is what happens. We get fearful, we get paranoid, right? We know we're in the wrong, and instead of just doing something about it, we continue on and we become paranoid and we make irrational decisions, and no longer do we have our rationality with us. Thank God for his mercy and that he holds our hand and he brings us to a place of escape. And it doesn't mean that we're all got it together. We just are thankful for God's mercy in our lives for sure. So again, you can always check out podcasts that we do at Running Light Ministries on the SoundCloud.com platform, Running Light Ministries, and you could always check out some of the talks we have about the issues in this chapter, and just in about these intimate settings for sure. So hey, you guys have a good one. Remember that picture. Someone grabs your hand, pulls you out. God give us a heart to for our families, for our loved ones, to pull them out as well. So you guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.